We were running fast and loose. Wow, that is hilarious. So for those of you, whoa, there we go.
Hey,
all right, how we doing, Rafa?
doing excellent.
Everybody missed all that. What do you got there?
I'm just polishing up the latest telly that we won for the on
How many
Rick
people
Prado.
out there have ever had a telly?
Look at that, huh?
That's for real. Look at that bad boy. That is
that
awesome.
real gold?
Is it real gold?
I'll tell you when I go to the pawn shop.
Well, I have a Pulitzer Prize coming up for this CPARS book I'm working on, Dave.
Oh, you do? Do you?
Yeah,
is that right?
Brian, I can guarantee
50,000 words into my CPARS book that's going to be released in about another month. So
that's all. I can't wait for that, dude. I'm looking forward to that.
We'll get
yours is in English. I'll be able to read yours. I can't read a doggone thing that Raphael puts out there.
But Dave, yours
but it's Baltimore English.
It's Baltimore English, hon?
Got some Huns in there. Exactly.
For those of you who are not from Baltimore, you have no idea what the heck we just did.
Exactly.
There is no doubt about it. All right, we're welcome everybody. We'll get cooking in just a minute. I'm gonna put this up. Wait a minute, I gotta do my chat stuff first, man. How you doing, Greg Clark?
Good morning, all is well.
Yeah, all is well. Hold on a second. I gotta get my stuff to go to everyone and get all chats for everyone to see, so everybody can put their stuff into the chat.
Yeah.
And we want to welcome everybody. We'll get started in just a minute. We're cutting up a little bit here. We have a lot of fun. That's all I know. The folks that are here are solid as well as entertaining at the same time, right, Rafa? We don't want no stinking death by PowerPoint.
No.
So yeah, so let us know. Put in the chat. Where are you from? And one word for doing business with the federal government. And we might just have a former contracting officer here today. I'm not going to introduce him yet. I'm not going to say who it is yet, because you might want to throw stuff at him.
So with that said, everybody better watch what they say. Because I'll take names. I still know CEOs at agencies. You know?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And you get and it's not me. I'm not the CEO.
So there you go. So everybody put in the chat. What is the chat not working? Just read the screen. There we go. Jay Talbot. I know I can always count on Jay. I'm going to see you later this afternoon, right, Jay? Richard says difficult. Raleigh. Irene says from Raleigh, lucrative. Jay says insane. I love it. We got a couple of them here. We're going to get we're in the last 2 weeks. We're going to talk about the last 54 weeks. Here's some of the ones that some other folks said. Rob said optimistic. We got collapsing, accommodating, partner, bureaucratic, complex. A lot of that. Fair. That's a big one, Richard. Not sure. Wasteful. There you go. Rad. That's Chelsea. She must be a little younger than us, I think. What do you think, Brian?
I think
challenging, slow, lucrative, spending, complicated. Yippee! Love that one. Overwhelming, challenging. All right, what else we got? Competent. Oh boy. Felicia. Okay. Good. Confused. Good. Bloated. Support. Impossible, complex, collaborative, growing, important, potential, cumbersome, still learning, opportunities, confusing, not always transparent. How about that one, Greg
Dave,
Clark?
you missed mine. What you do, skip over mine? I said industry thinks wrong. They need to think like an insider.
That's true. I agree with you. But that's more than one word, you freaking bald moron.
Okay. You're right.
Let's see. Booming market, excellent customers. We're going to get to the ones that are in the chat in just a minute. Contracts, bureaucracy, and red tape. For those of you just joining us, what's your one word for the federal government? And where are you from, by the way? Complex, opportunity, stable, opaque. I love that one. Need to learn more. Necessary, economical, biggest client. True. Right, Brian? Is that true? Biggest client.
Oh, biggest client. That is true.
Yeah, it is true. Endless. That would also be true. Slow. Opportunity. We can talk about that a little bit. Immeasurable, challenging. A lot of those things. I'll get to that in just a minute. And we got, what do we got? Let's go back up. Jay said insane. I love that one. Robert, customer, that's good. Joyce is familiar with the Balmer twang. Okay, hon, we'll go down the ocean. That's right. And Brian says industry thinks wrong. That's what he's saying. Industry thinks wrong. You have to think like an insider, and he is right about that. I will say that. Slow, says Joyce. Frustrating, says Mike. Bureaucratic, Marcella. Rafa says daunting. Alyssa says massive. Love that. Brian says money, of course. Let's see. Big consumer, Jason says, I agree. Nita says opportunities, and all of those things are correct. And for those of you who don't know what we're doing here for industry, it's not affiliated, endorsed by GSA or any agencies, provided you for information purposes only, does not guarantee a contract award. And we got Govies here. We have a former Govy. That may be as close as we get. We might have Govies though. And in order for them to participate, Brian, this is what GSA says that we have to say to you, that it's not an endorsement or commitment to purchase from any vendor. So there you go.
Wow.
So why are we here today? $1.1 billion have been spent. That's about 58%. And that doesn't add up. I didn't change the 58%. 608 is the number left, though. That is correct. So here we go. Why is that, Rafael Marrero? Why in the world are we talking about this?
You've got to make the acquisitions before the end of the federal fiscal year.
Why is that? That doesn't make any sense.
Adios. And adios. It's gone.
That's right. All right. Oh, hang on a second. Peter Timbus is here. Hold on, Peter. I'm coming, buddy. I'm a-coming.
I knew you would.
I know. Where are you?
I'm patient.
Oh, you know what? You hijacked me. That's why. You got to renamify yourself, man, because you're a Dave Lowe identity thief right now.
Oh, and I could never live up to that pressure.
So there you go. All right. So this is what we're going to be talking about. It is the last 18 days. I just ran this. It's going to be in the handouts. As soon as I get the handouts, I'll pass them over to you. And this is the answer that we got. This is totally different than what we've seen since 2020. This has changed dramatically. 74%. Look at that, Brian. What does it mean if there's nothing, if the contracting officers don't say how many offers were received? What does that mean?
More than likely one.
More than likely one.
Yeah, more than likely.
So that's coming from an insider. And this is the other part of it. 86% have 5 or fewer competitors. Why would that be? Why would that be, former contracting officer Brian Hebel?
Because we don't like too much competition.
What?
We
You're
just
supposed to be fair.
No, right. Well, if you don't get too much competition, it'll be fast, right?
And you want it fast.
It's more work for the insiders if you get too much competition, Dave.
Did you hear that, everybody? If you don't walk away with just the tidbit right there, a former contracting officer coming clean saying they don't like competition any more than we do.
No, we like a little bit, just not too much of it.
You want companies that have the ability to deliver, that have proven themselves. Imagine that.
Dave, it's all about risk management. It's all about risk management. It's fear of the unknown. Having been on the other side of that from the Fortune 500 piece, and which is where a lot of your attendees today play, because I imagine a lot of them do subcontracting. We looked at contractors, and whenever we saw someone new, we went down our checklist to make sure that their readiness posture to engage with us was appropriate, that they had, they met all the qualifications from a quality and safety bonding perspective. So of course, we want to have a select few good group of vendors that are reliable and they're not going to make us look bad.
That's exactly right. And guess what? Did you look at this bottom part where it says the number of opportunities show up on SAM.gov? Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
That means that's why this thing is up in the upper right-hand corner. That's there all the time so that you can log into SAM Radar and sign up. Why? Because 98% ain't hitting SAM.gov. And if you want to win, you better be monitoring SAM.gov and watching for the awards, whether you're going to sub or not, right? Rafa, you mentioned subcontracting, right? Because Absolutely. If you don't win an IDIQ, same thing with you, Brian, and Greg too. If you don't win the IDIQ, what do you'd only have one choice, right? What's the choice? If you don't win the
contract.
IDIQ,
Yeah.
Join a team.
you got to join the team, sub, right? All right. So there's my first question today is, did you know about the 98% not hitting SAM.gov? Yes. If you've been listening to anything I've ever said, you know it. If not, maybe you knew, but I knew you were missing something, but I didn't know it was 98%. Or maybe you just flat out don't believe me. Imagine that. People not believing me, Greg Clark. Can you imagine that? Where'd Irene go? Is Irene still here?
I am still here.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure you disappeared for a minute. So throughout this process, we're going to connect you with experts. We have experts here. I'm going to introduce them in just a minute and what they do and how they can help you. Because guess what? The sponsors and the partners are here because none of us can do this alone. Am I right, Irene? Can any of us do this by ourselves?
Absolutely not. That's why we're
Absolutely not.
partners.
There you go. So, and I'm going to introduce everybody real quick because everybody's going to get a chance to throw in throughout today. Rafael Marrero and company. He is the doctor. He is the colonel, and he is the Telly Award winner. Pick that bad boy up again. Show everybody.
Forgive me while I shine this up for a second.
He is a legit. That is legit. That's a Telly Award that he won, and he does capability statements, briefings, videos, websites. You can read it there. Business cards that are mini capability statements. And if you get this look from your marketing expert on your team about what is a capability statement, guess what? You need Rafa. Why? Because he's the guy that does this for a living and helps you get to where you want to go with your capability statements and capabilities business cards, as I mentioned. We also have Greg Clark, who is a proposal writer. He loves the paperwork. He does GSA schedules. I hate that stuff. That's why Greg's here. He also helps with other contracting vehicles. And you might be working on just this little thing. I don't know, something about being in the middle of the desert or something. What are you working on?
Oasis Plus.
Oasis Plus. If you don't know what that is, then you need to reach out to Greg. We'll put some things in the chat for them. Okay, Greg.
That's good. Yep.
Sally White is on location in, I don't know where is she? Peter Timbus, who's
She's in
imitating me.
Dallas.
What?
She's in Dallas at a conference.
She's in Dallas at a conference with former President Bush, I think, is what I heard.
Yes.
Well,
She may be joining us in a few minutes. But Sally is, as it says, she's a connector. She understands LinkedIn. She also does representation at events like in Dallas, right, Peter?
Absolutely.
And speaking of Peter, he helps fund people. He helps folks with he says he's Dave Lowe, but he doesn't realize what that means. But Peter helps with funding and providing what is known as, what is that called when you are proving that you have the capabilities in a bid there, Peter?
We provide letters of financial support, which will support your efforts in trying to win contracts that'll state to the government contracting officer, should he award the contract to you, we will be there to support you financially on that contract.
I love it. And that's what Peter does. And Irene is helpful. She helps people get her certifications. And certifications means socioeconomic certifications so that you can participate in set-asides, because that's what the government is looking to do for some of these, right, Irene? Is set-aside stuff.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
I also do company paperwork, any legal documents, things of that nature. I am former federal law enforcement, and as of next month, I will be back in law enforcement.
Oh, that's right. Congratulations, I think.
Thank you. As of what I'll be doing, I'd tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's right. Gun toter. She's turning into a gun toter again. All right. We appreciate you. I love
knows how to work a 6 or
all right.
6 are the best.
And so that I can introduce this character, Brian and I connected several years ago. He is a former contracting officer. You've heard a little bit about what he said about the level of competition. He's got other wisdom bombs to drop on us today. He actually wrote a book, how to market and sell to the federal government. And you're writing another one on what, Brian Hamill?
We got some big news coming out related to CPARs. So I'd like to say I'm a CPARs expert, and we got some big news coming out in about 2 months on some things we're going to be releasing related to CPARs. So pretty excited about that, and working with Dave Lowe on that, for that matter.
And what is CPARs for those of us who are brand new? What is CPARs?
It's the report card you get from the government every year, the contractor performance assessment rating system, and you get an evaluation from your contracting officer every month. Actually, I do training for federal agencies on CPARs. In fact, I'm doing it at my former agency 4 times between now and the end of the year. Did it 6 times last year, and just got some big news coming out on CPARs in about another month and a half or so.
Yeah,
So
it's coming,
pretty
baby.
excited about that. Something new nobody's ever done before. So
Yeah.
anyhow, but if you ever have any CPARs questions, you could ask Dave and he can forward them to me. I'm not looking for clients. I'm just I like doing training and like getting into things like CPARs from an inside perspective.
Love
In
it.
fact, I'm interviewing a former Corps today, or a current Corps, on CPARs, and a focal point on Friday just about their perspective on CPARs. So anyhow, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dave Lowe. I'm the CEO of ISI Federal. Under the ISI Federal umbrella, you will see things like Market Essentials, which is our intelligence, Gov Brief, which is enabling you to be the SME. And we will be having a call for experts, calling for experts and panelists. If you want to showcase what you do to the govies and or industry, both sides of the house, that is what Gov Brief is built for. It's just been redesigned, and we are super psyched about that. For industry, you're going to see things that are coming up. We got the SAM.gov tutorial today, sole source justification later this week, working with Greg Clark on last minute RFPs, provided that Oasis doesn't get extended again. But there's a bunch of things that you can find there. It's taken off. A lot of you folks know about this already. Jay Talbot, I know, knows about it. He'll be joining me this afternoon. So good to see you, Jay. You can find much more on govbrief.us. Today, we will be featuring a little bit on SAM Radar. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I will say this. It is different. It operates differently. It puts you in position to win the other 98% that aren't showing up on SAM.gov, to build relationships. Because I don't care what anybody says, Brian Hamill, relationships matter, don't they?
Yeah. Certainly, as Raphael said before, you do want to do things that are, going to get you, it's all about getting the work done. And if you do it with people, and trust, and can do it in a quick and efficient manner, that's kind of what the role of the contracting officer is, and in my case was for 34 years.
So I hope you guys are listening. This is special because Brian doesn't get to be with us all that often. Brian and I do other briefings all the time, but we don't get together like this. So I really appreciate you being here, Brian. And if you're wondering what people are saying, not us, go to samradar.com and play the video and see what people are saying. And you can test drive it for 7 days. And with that, we're going to get off onto our one word from the federal government. And we had a whole bunch of them before. And Alyssa, you will be able to get a copy of the video. And there's no name.
What else are the attendees going to be receiving?
We
before
will
they start asking.
Oh, that's a great question. Hold on one second. You keep talking, Greg. Hold on. I'm hoping I'm grabbing. There we go. Hold on. These fine people are going to get all of the handouts that I was going to show you that in just a minute, but I'm going to put them here right now. And make sure you put your information in. Who is that? That's you to Peter Timbus. How did that happen? Hang on a second, Peter.
I'm all over.
I know. All right, there we go. All right, so those are the handouts you're going to get today. What's your one word for the federal government? We had a whole bunch of them earlier. A lot of them revolved around being confusing and frustrating. And then on the other side is the dollars, the ducats, the cheddar, right, Rafa?
That's it.
It's a big deal for one word with the government. If you got one, pop it in the chat. Tell us where you're from and the one word. And what we're going to do is we're going to share the links and docs, which I just did. And if you have any questions, pop them or raise your hand, because we will be glad to unmutify you. And if you have something in there for your that you'd like us to do, put it in the Q&A. All right, I got another poll. But before I do that, let me pop this one up. So we have a lot of folks that knew that a lot of things weren't hitting SAM.gov. Some folks had no idea that 75% had zero competition. Love that. And would you like a free NAICS report? I'm going to show you where you can get that. In fact, it's in the handouts. I just gave it to you. So there you go. You have it right now, whether you want it or not. It's in the handouts. And I'm going to pop that in one more time for everybody to see, because in those handouts, you'll find, hang on a sec. Let me resume my share. You're going to find the spending year to date. That is a NAICS report that has your competition broken out by NAICS and PSC combinations so that you can identify NAICS and PSCs that you should be paying attention to, especially right now with this fiscal year end. There's a planning worksheet. There's a ISI federal capabilities, another propaganda in there for you. Anybody else got another one word? Because a lot of folks are saying that it's complex, challenging, complicated, overwhelming. And there's another one for overwhelming. Gotcha. Is that a Dallas? Is that how you say that? And then important, rad, yippee, and potential. And I love the yippee part, man. I'm getting diehard. And that's why we're here. We are here, and you should remember to schedule your demo or sign up for SAM Radar, get a free 7-day trial. So that is what we wanted. So who do we want to reach, ladies and gentlemen? That's going to be the next question. Do you want to reach federal contracting officers like Brian, who's a former? How about program managers and project managers? How important are program managers and project managers, Greg Clark?
Extremely important. They're the people who identify needs within the agencies, and typically those are the people, or at least their teams, are the ones who write the statements of work. And then they instruct the contracting office to get an award in place.
How about prime holders so you can sub? Or how about prime contractors holders so you can sell to them? Maybe that, or maybe federal employees so you can sell to them, or small business specialists, or OSDBOs as they know. And if you need some help to see how we can do it, and GovBrief should say something else. I didn't adjust these polls properly today. But here we go. Here are the hot seat questions. You guys ready for hot seat questions? Here we go. They're going to be, how can I bid on fuel opportunities in SDVOSB? So we're going to talk about that. What's the process for sole source awards, and tips for the last 2 weeks, because that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. So hot seat question number 1. Greg, you're going to be up first. So here you go. How can you bid on fuel opportunities as a SDVOSB? In a minute, I'm going to find out from Irene what it takes to be an SDVOSB. But you go ahead first, Greg.
I guess you would go and determine what the NAICS code is and see what opportunities are out there for that. Doing keyword searches, doing NAICS code searches, see what opportunities are out there, either coming or past, because even if a contract is already awarded, that's still an opportunity because you've identified an agency, and not just the agency, but the point of contact and contact information for the person who is in charge of awarding that contract for those services or commodities that you're interested in. And you can contact that person and say, I see that you purchased this 2 months ago. Do you see a need to purchase this again in the next 24 months?
I love the fact that you're setting me up for SAM Radar in a few minutes. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
But the NAICS codes that you want will be here in the report that you can download. You can look up, here's fuel dealers, fossil fuel generation, other fuel dealers. You can find those there. And I highly encourage you to pop in this vendors detailed and look at those as who fuel providers are to see how they're doing it. There's also PSCs, NAICS codes. What's a NAICS code, Irene?
An industry code.
That's an industry code. What's a PSC?
A product service code.
A product service code. Do they operate?
I do want to add in there real quick. As an SDVOSB, it's I highly recommend to register on DIBS, which is the DLA, Department of Defense Logistics Internet Bid Board System. They do put a lot of smaller contracts and whatnot out there, and it's the Department of Defense. They like working with their own, so that's your best bet at getting contracts as an SDVOSB.
Love it, love it. Great advice. DIBS, always a good thing to register on. All right, so I'm going to end this poll in 3, 2, 1. Get that out of the way. All right. what I did is I pulled up here in PSC. So the NAICS codes, here's your NAICS codes that you want to be searching under, and here's your PSCs. These are what you're going to put into SAM.gov as your search criteria, right? Right, Brian Hebel? That's where you would put it. If you're going to advertise it, how would you advertise for fuel? Not that you would buy fuel at CMS.
Well, that's a good question, but I guess it depends on how the agency buys. It's kind of funny. I just had a guy contact me about that took some of my training, and he was looking to buy beef. He was trying to figure out which agency buys beef. So I just said, oh well, I'll do a little searching for you and try to help him. And I found out that like DLA is buying all the beef, which Irene, you were just saying before, but
And DECA, Defense Commissary Agency, and both of those, right?
yeah, which I have no idea, but
How about the National Park Service to feed the animals?
yeah, but to make a long story short, Dave, I don't care about NACS codes. I was a contracting officer. We don't get any training on NACS codes. I don't really care.
Is that right?
We just, I was buying services and we never get any training on it. We just pick one and put it in there. So maybe for gas, it's pretty.
You mean to tell me that you were picking NAICS codes?
Contracting officer about NACS codes because they're not going to know anything about them. I really don't care about them.
Wow. And does that's actually surprising to me, and because that's what they tell us, right, Irene? When you go and you meet with the OSDBU, what are they going to say to you?
What are your NAICS codes?
What are your NAICS codes?
I challenge anybody to find a contracting officer who's got training on NACS codes. I don't know why.
Brian, I know why they don't get trained on NAICS codes, because they use PSC codes to find.
No, there is no training on PSC codes
No,
either.
I'm not saying training.
Yeah, which is actually how your CPARs are selected. They go in and put in product service codes in the FPDS for they pick one, but that's actually makes a determination of whether you get a CPARs or not. So anyhow,
but they do have to have the NAICS code in the SAM, right? Because I did have a client.
We just pick one. We just pick one.
They just pick one. There, ladies and gentlemen, is why you need to be doing keyword searches, right, Rafa?
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Now,
so like I'll get I don't really have or want clients, but the few that I have, we'll talk about the NACS codes only from the standpoint of trying to find a NACS code that the incumbent who's blown out their NACS codes isn't on. So you can go talk to the contracting officer, just in terms of strategies, there's strategies on the outside for NACS codes, but on the inside, we don't care.
And what Brian was just saying, Irene, is, and let's bring this back into the socioeconomic category of the service disabled, because what Brian just said is if the NAICS code is a certain size, that'll put some people as large business, right?
Yeah.
And that gives the service disabled, if it's set aside for service disabled, small business, the large businesses can't even, they won't even see it anyway necessarily, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So what does it take to be an SDV OSB? Tell us real quick about that.
Well, you have to have a DD-214, an honorable discharge, your honorable discharge paperwork. The company has to be owned 51% at least, own and run. So this veteran has to be the majority owner, has to be the highest compensated. And there can't be any supermajority voting or anything like that in your bylaws, your operating agreement. Basically, they have full control of the company. And in the case of service disabled, then they have to have a disability rating of at least 10% from the VA.
There it was, ladies and gentlemen, 42.5 seconds. Everything you need to know about being an SDV OSB. I love
Thanks
that.
for coming to my TED Talk.
That's what she does for a living. Can you tell? So, Rafa, you were mentioning, you no matter what, I mean, I do know some contracting officers, contrary to Brian Hebel's popular opinion that they don't, because they will ask for it. But I think that sometimes they're just asking for that just to see whether you're even prepared to do business with them, right? You got to at least look the part, right?
We have to look at it from a business standpoint, right? Let's get away from these absolute declarations. Let's talk about reality. The reality is that if NAICS codes challenges were not one of the main reasons for protests, right, on awards, then I would agree with Brian. We have to part from the notion that as people responsible for a budget, we have to source vendors who are duly qualified to provide a product or service, right? Now, in the private sector, when you're a Fortune 500 company and you're managing your supply chain, you want to get vendors that are not going to go belly up, that have the financial wherewithal, that have the supply chain, that won't have any supply chain interruptions, et cetera. And that's why it's important to pick out those that are qualified. So I look at NAICS codes, I look at NIGP codes if it's state and local, right? National Institute of Government Procurement, and I look at UNSPC codes if it's United Nations Supply, product codes, right? You have to look at all these different codes in order to source, or commodity codes, in order to source vendors that are registered under those codes. Now, above and beyond that, you can't have everything on your SAM registration and DSBS profile, because I've seen people that have everything from a rocket ship to doing real estate on their profile, and that what the message that you're sending out is that you're a master of none. You're a jack of all trades.
I couldn't agree more.
And what you need to do is have a parent-child relationship between your NAICS codes, right? Your North American Industrial Classification System codes, and your product supply codes, because there is that relationship between parent and child. So it's really not the contracting officer's job to get smart on this. It's your job to make sure that you, as a as a potential contractor, have the necessary NAICS codes, because contrary to popular opinion, you will be sourced using these codes, right? And you will be sourced according to the services mapped and identified with these codes, right? So, and listen, I deal with this all day because I work with capabilities marketing materials, and I can tell you just by looking at someone's materials if they're jacked up, if they're ready to go to market, or if they're just blowing sunshine. I can tell, because it's a corporate resume, right? I look at it and I can tell you right away if they're going to be high risk, if they're going to be trouble, or if they're worth pursuing.
I love that. And I think, to your point, if you don't look like you belong, everybody knows that you don't. Everybody's in the inside knows that you don't.
Say next.
And so I do want to,
Yep.
I do want to add one thing. So I did a real quick and dirty. This is SAM.gov, some of our favorite locations to go on the interwebs. But you can get into your advanced search. I already built this up, but I did a search for fuel. Because of exactly what Brian said, and because of also what Rafa said, I want to see fuel across the board. I don't want to necessarily just see it within a particular NAICS code or a particular PSC, because they may willy-nilly pick that thing out of the air. I don't need that. You don't.
This is really interesting. I want to see what you found just for fuel.
See that? So I found 473, and these are active. Now be careful with this. I am doing an event at 1 o'clock talking exactly about this. I'm not going to go too deep into it here for everybody else, but if you want more on SAM.gov, you want a tutorial on this, I'm going to talk about it for over an hour and at 1 o'clock. But if you take a look at this, you can see these are what are all popped up, right? Now, I will tell you that we will find some things if we go down a little further that don't quite look like they should be active. There's 19 pages of these, right? But you can, now if SAM.gov would actually do for me, right? So these are still active, but they were due September 7th. And if you keep going to page 5, I guarantee you're going to find stuff that back in 2016 or something stupid. So don't trust everything that you see on SAM.gov.
Well, if they leave it active, is it because they didn't get enough solicitations, or why is that? It's just there?
Or
they set a date when they posted of when it's going to go active, and it's not based on any activity in the procurement process. Usually,
all I'm saying is, if it's supposed to be active, it should be active, and you'll just find garbage on SAM.gov. Shocking as that might be, just saying. All right. So I'm going to skip this one, but I'm going to go to this, and that is a hot seat question number 2, which is, what is a sole source? What's the process for a sole source award? All right. So before we get into this, if I can just set this up for just a minute. An award can be competed anywhere from a sole source, right, Brian, to full and open. It goes all the way across that. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah.
And we already showed that there's places where there's no competition. That's not even necessarily a sole source award. It is an award that doesn't have any competition. There's two different things. A sole source award is different than just only getting one offer received, right, Brian?
Yeah.
So let's understand this for just a minute, because I think there's some folks that are new here. Let's talk about these folks that are involved. They're stakeholders that are involved. Now, the politicals don't get involved in the procurement process, or they shouldn't. All right, Brian?
They didn't in my agency. So.
They didn't.
Oh, they definitely do. In my agency as well.
Oh, look at that. We have competing views. All right. So so you have your politicals are the high level. Senior executive services, that's the high level bureaucrats, right, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Were you an SES or were you?
No. I was a senior official, but I was not an SES.
So right underneath of that are the senior officials and other directors of different places, right? So, and Greg, you mentioned this, that the program managers, their job is to identify what needs to be done, right? And then Brian's job is getting the contract done. You guys tracking with me on this, everybody? There's two different folks that are involved in this. Brian, and from almost everything that you did for 34 years, did you ever create a solicitation and the information that was, did you ever manage the people?
Did I ever write the statement of work?
Yeah.
So no,
because that's not your job.
right.
The program people say, Brian, I need this, right? And if you take a look at your handouts, you'll see the winnable opportunity matrix, and the things on the right-hand side there are your program manager has a requirement, throws it over the fence to contracting, because program people cannot buy anything, right, Brian?
Nope.
There's only one group of people that have the ability to bind the United States government in a contract with us, and that's folks like Brian, right, Brian?
Yeah, the interesting part on that, Dave, is the program managers, they don't have any time frames in terms of when they send the package to the CO. So once they throw it over to the CO, I like your analogy, throw it over, then it's hurry up and get it done on the CO side.
That's right. Yeah. And then you have to stress about whether there's budget, about whether your job is to herd all the cats and try to pull everything off, and why your hair gets on fire this time of year, right? Right?
No hair left.
That's right. You can tell. You can tell what it was like. He's having flashbacks, PTSD to September.
Yeah, once I retired, my hair started growing back.
So this is where the opportunity comes from, right? This is what creates an opportunity, and the result of that is an award, which is what we post on SAM Radar. And I'll tell you what we're talking about, because you'll see this award. It's an amount that's awarded, and we'll see who it's awarded to. We can see the NAICS codes, whether the contracting officer cares about it or not. It's still
541611. That's like golf throwing. You would put anything in there.
Yeah, you put anything you want in there, which is why it's really important to pay attention to what's happening. And you'll see here the number of offers. Remember I was saying about the number of offers received is 1. This is the same kind of concepts. That could be a sole source award, or it could just be that folks like Brian have a group of people that they put it out to, and only one response comes in. Totally legal, totally legit, right, Brian?
Yep.
To do it. Now, I'm going to be talking about, here's a very brief plug for what's happening on Thursday at 11 a.m. I'm going to be talking about sole source awards, and not just 8A, because there's ways that those happen, and you can check that out on GovBrief. That's the end of that particular advertisement. We'll go back to this advertisement where you can check things out by NAICS, PSC, keywords, and competitors, and it'll monitor everything that is involved in that process. So with that, Rafa, let's talk about what you would do to show that you have the capacity to have a sole source award. Who can get awarded a sole source award as a socioeconomic side? And I'm going to talk to you about this too, Irene.
Well, I mean, if you're an 8A, right? If you're an 8A, if you're an EDWOSB, or even veteran owned, and even hub zones. I mean, basically most, if not all, special designations of socioeconomic certifications qualify for sole source awards.
That's correct.
Provided that you meet the criteria set aside for a sole source award justification, which is typically one of 5 criteria that are delineated. So it's submitting a proposal, and Greg's great at this, submitting a proposal for a sole source justification, right? I've written them before with 100%, acceptance.
Now you can use the justification. You don't have to have a socioeconomic set aside for justification.
That's correct. But sometimes when an agency is far behind on its goals, right, on its goaling, they will look at special designations. And if you have 2 or 3 certifications, guess what? They get double and triple credit, right? So
That's right.
They can check off multiple boxes. But basically, you have to demonstrate to the government that it is in their best interest to contract with your firm to provide a service or a product because you offer something unique that no one else has, or it's a benefit to the government in terms of like features and benefits, that you have something proprietary, not available by other people. And so sole source justifications are very popular now. So is OTA. They're using this as well for this kind of acquisition strategy, right?
So there's 2 different types, right?
Yep.
You have it. Well, there's multiple types, right, Brian? There's actually more than just 2, but if you look at socioeconomic categories,
Yep.
right, Irene, you help people get these certifications. That's why I'm going to rely on you for just a minute to get that by statute. If you have, it can be sole source by statute, which is where the 8A piece comes in, right?
Mhm.
And then, or service disabled, all those can be, but as Brian, I'm gonna reach out to you in just a minute, Brian, because you know a lot about this too. Tell us what it's like to get one of the other socioeconomic categories. You mentioned service disabled. What is it like to get an 8A?
A cavity search? I'm just kidding.
What's that?
A cavity search. But no, 8A, I mean, really, it's considered the king of certifications for a reason. 8A has the highest amount of set-asides that you could possibly get. And that's why it's the hardest one to get. They really do a deep dive into your business, your financials, things that they don't do for other certifications. They have a potential for success section, whereas other certs, they just care about if you're a veteran, if you're a woman, etc. But this one, they really want to see that you have the potential to actually complete these contracts, that you have the financial capacity to complete these contracts. And this is different because other certifications are kind of just a piece of paper, not even because they don't even issue certificates, but with this one, it's really more of a program where you're supposed to have SBA people kind of hand holding you on the contract process and helping you obtain these set-asides.
Right. And when you get an 8A, the money just falls from the sky, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just going to be right on your lap the second you look up.
Do not. That was 100% sarcasm for those of you who don't know what we do here. So Brian, when you would determine, how would you determine what you were going to sole source? How would that happen?
Well, of course, 8A is always, the easiest way to sole source it. But then, the FAR is going to point out what you need to have in a sole source document. But it would just depend on, what the requirement was at the agency at the time. 8A, being the easy way to go. You could do a hub zone, a service disabled sole source, but you just have to post some stuff in advance. So if a vendor came to me and they had something unique and we had a need at the agency, we'd have to jump through a couple hoops, but it's always possible to document a sole source if that company's the only one that can do it, or if there's an urgent and compelling need like there was COVID, that could be another reason to do I'm going to say a sole source contract, where we're just going to award it to that particular vendor. So it just depends on the situation. But I would say if you did have a situation, you could talk to your program manager. I will say, Dave, the best way, in my opinion, is to get I'm going to say a sole source contract is a logical follow-on if you have an IDIQ contract.
Ooh, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean, Brian Habel? What's a logical follow-on?
Yeah, well, if you have an IDIQ contract or a GSA schedule contract, each of those regulations allow the contracting officer to do a one-time follow-on, and it could be a base in 4 years, or it could be a base in 1 or 2 years without competition. So, I mean, that's probably one of the most overlooked processes contractors don't think about in terms of how they engage their program manager, because none of your program managers are going to know what a logical follow-on even is, much less to do it. So, you know,
That's a contract.
I had somebody call me, wasn't a client, asked me, hey, you talk about these logical follow-ons in your training. What are they? And how do I go about doing it? They talked to their program manager, who really wanted to get back to them. They didn't want to go out and do a competition. They didn't want to get another vendor. And they were secured a logical follow-on just by explaining it to their program manager. So if you see a logical follow-on there, it's probably going to be a 1 or a 0.
Exactly. Why? And because there was no competition, it wasn't even redone.
Yeah.
So this is why, as we learn more about this, and that's why I love Brian, because he knows the inside, has done these. And he also knows some other secrets. We're not going to tell all the secrets here, Brian. Just going to say, but I will say this. Just to throw in on top of what everybody just said. And I'm doing this I'm doing today. The SAM.gov I'm doing today. But Thursday, if you go to govbrief.us, I'm talking exactly about this, because I have used them. I've used justification and approval language. I've sent out justification and approval language that turned into a solicitation, that turned into virtually a direct award or a sole source contract. So you can do this. And a logical follow-on is why incumbents have such an incredible advantage, especially if they know about logical follow-on. So I will say, what you got there, Greg?
Irene, Jason Moore says that he heard that they stopped 8A.
Great.
They paused 8A. They did not stop 8A. So it's currently in a pause because they're going through a restructure of the application to comply with the federal ruling from July 29th, basically stating that using a presumption of disadvantage was no longer allowed. So now, regardless of race, ethnicity, whatever, you still have to provide a letter of saying how you've been socially disadvantaged in your life. So that's really the only change. Basically, it's not going to be, oh, we're looking at your passport and you're Hispanic or you're Black, so 8A approved. Now everybody has to provide a justification of why they think they're disadvantaged.
How they've been discriminated against.
Correct. Basically, yeah. So you just have to say like what your struggles have been, especially as it pertains to kind of like the business world, contracting in general, and all the above. So what your struggles have been in life. I kind of call it the woe is me letter, but yeah, I'll be submitting a lot of those.
You're in a lot of woe is me.
I was actually surprised that I met a lady who owns a construction company, and she's white, and her company's 8A. And I said, how did you get 8A? She said, well, I've been discriminated because the construction industry is a man's industry, and I was discriminated because I'm a female.
Absolutely. People don't realize that if your woe is me letter is convincing enough, you can get an 8A, and you can be literally anything. I have a client that's an ex-convict trying to get 8A, so we'll see how that goes. But and going off of that,
you need to screen your clients a little bit better.
Yeah, you can be.
He's good now. He owns a construction company. He did his time. He's all right. He's an all right person.
Somebody who's Italian, LGBTQ, got an 8A from being in that category a couple of years ago, actually.
I think you're gonna see a lot of that, right? Where we're seeing some especially in light of that decision. Mm-hmm. It's funny you said that, because Steve Kennedy from Dirt, who I featured earlier with the Sam Radar, he's on the Sam Radar website. He sent that to me today. He said, what do you think of this? And I said, well, I don't know enough about it. And here we are talking about it. So I appreciate it very much. And then Aisha's asking, let me do this. I'm gonna ask a question real quick. Do you get paid for researching buyers? No, I get paid when I freaking sell something. Or are you a data nerd? And then secondarily, do you make more than $22 an hour? And I am setting you up. I will tell you that right now. So And the reason why I do want to go back to the 8A thing in just a minute. You can check out this. This is all about SAM Radar, because if you don't get paid for paying research, or if you make more than $22 an hour, or want to make more than $22 an hour, I know Rafa, he doesn't make, what do you bet? About $3.50?
Yeah, I'll work for Cuban coffee at this point.
So there you are. And if you're not, so you can check out samradar.com there. We're going to get into the upcoming tips just a second. If you have any questions, pop them in there. We have one from Aisha. If there's one response and the officer doesn't feel the vendor is fit, what's the probability of competing it? What is that? What do you think, Brian Hebel?
Well, I mean, the problem with recompeting is always, I mean, at least where I worked, it was a lot of service contracts that were based in 4 options, and the amount of time it takes to recompete, generally from the time the program office starts putting the package together to the time, it's going to be 9 months, and I'm talking about, before it even gets put on GSA schedule or FedBiz Ops or wherever. So if they're gonna, if they don't like a vendor, they're gonna do what they can to try to get the vendor to do the job the best they can. And they're just gonna threaten them with their CPARs. But it's very difficult to go out and recompete a procurement, because then you get protests. You might be talking like CIOS before, it might be talking a year and a half before you could award it new to somebody. So I'm not sure if that answered the question or not, Dave.
I don't know for sure either. I just think with Aisha, if you're not convinced that the contractor can do the job, you're not going to award that contract.
You haven't made your case, as a contractor, if that's the case, right? You haven't presented your capabilities or a good solution worthy of the contracting officer awarding you the business. That's
correct.
Yeah, well, if you're an 8A, let's okay. I mean, if you already have a contract, it's really difficult for us to get rid of somebody, just in terms of recompeting. But if you're an 8A, like in my case, and at the time we didn't have good agency forecast, although I knew what I was going to be buying. If I had an 8A, if I had an 8A requirement in my division, and I would meet with contractors like 2 a week, I was a little bit different from that standpoint. And they came in and their capabilities matched what was on my forecast, I'd send them over to meet the program people, right? Because if it's 8A and it's less than $4 million or $4.5 million, we just pick who we want, So from that standpoint, if they came in, we just pick who we want.
I was hoping that when the Aisha's question came in, if the contracting officer only gets one proposal and the vendor's unfit, does it recompete? I was hoping that Brian's answer would be 100%. Absolutely, we won't award that contract to this company that we feel is unfit. So
no, we wouldn't. No, in terms of, we're talking lots of different things. But if it was an 8A, you're going to get a proposal. But if the 8A looked like they couldn't do the job, we just pick somebody else. But we could, if it's an 8A, we could talk to 4 or 5 vendors, have them come in and just talk with them and pick the one we want, and then say, submit us a proposal from that.
I'm going to throw in on that as to say, if you put it out there, and it's not, and you didn't get somebody that was fit, then you would take an avenue, because you're not going to do 9 months all over again, like you said.
Talking, 8A is a little bit different then, but if we had a competition and we only got one bidder and we didn't like their proposal, we're not going to award it to them.
That's a fact. What you got, Rafa?
I was going to say that in the case of one of the things that makes the 8A program so unique is that it's virtually impossible to challenge an 8A award once it's been made, and that
explains why all the elevators are broken at my agency. But yeah,
it takes an act of God, not Congress, God, to get it out of the 8A program. Yeah. You're absolutely right, Robin.
Yeah, but you know what? We would turn. I mean, once it's in there, it's stuck in the 8A program per se. But if we had a contractor wasn't performing as an 8A, we could always just end the contract and pick another 8A. We're not gonna. It's all about getting the work done, right? It's not about from that standpoint. So,
Oh, I love this. Aisha's asking, more specifically, if the vendor didn't have as much past performance as the solicitation proposed. Now that is a whole nother question. And I do want to get to that, Aisha, but we might have to take that one offline because I want to get to our final piece here. But I would say you're not going to get it if your past performance doesn't hit. Right. Isn't that Greg?
Hopefully
Yeah,
we're
you
not.
meet the minimum mandatory requirements. You know, you either meet it or you don't.
Yep.
So it's up to the government if they establish that. Hopefully, you know, I don't know how hard they want to go at that.
What do you say? What do you say, Brian?
No, I know, Greg, Oasis is a whole different deal, right? But certainly when you look at experience and past performance, you know, in terms of, you know, that's two different things, right? Experience is what you've done, and past performance is how you've done it. So it kind of depends on what the evaluation criteria is. And Greg, good luck with that.
I love it. All right, here we go. Coming up, these are going to be tips. I'm going to do this real quick, and then I'm going to get you guys to throw in on any other additional tips that you would like to share. So this is what I say every year. Last 2 weeks, you got to be ready. Organize your team. Make sure that if you're going to get orders from somebody like a contracting officer like Brian might not post that thing on SAM.gov or GSA eBuy. He may just send that out to 3, 4, or 5 people. He's like, I got an award, millions of dollars. Somebody wants to take my money. So make sure you have the ability to respond. And if you're forwarding those emails, because I have seen it year after year, I see it where somebody loses something because they just didn't know about it. So forward your contract, especially your main number, your main GSA number to cell phones. Now we got VoIP systems. You can do whatever you want with them, but make sure everything's being forwarded so that you guys don't miss a blessed thing. The next thing that I would say is monitor your emails, because last minute deals from folks like Brian are going to come in your emails, most likely, right, Brian? You're going to shoot out emails. Am I right? Yep. And there is minimized competition. Brian already said it. You have 3 small businesses, select GSA contract holders using BPAs to run stuff through. If you have headroom on a BPA, great. If you're the only one that's awarded on that BPA, you're the only one that's going to get it. And the same thing goes with existing IDIQs and BPA, blanket purchase agreement, IDIQs, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, which these are the bigger contracts. Sometimes there's multiple awards, sometimes only one. And that's what we're after. So make sure you're checking your junk mail, because stuff can get put in there, especially now. Don't ignore your junk mail. Now, the other thing that I'm going to say is monitor SAM.gov all the time. And I'll throw this in. Stop dumpster timing on SAM.gov and go to SAM Radar. So there you go.
I'll add something to that.
Go ahead.
These things are getting, we've talked about this, and we've talked about this for years. These are very abbreviated procurement processes, right?
Oh, no doubt.
So these awards that are being made, the awardees are sometimes having to scramble to fulfill them. So it's not only about responding to solicitations, but monitor awards and in your industry and contact the awardees, because they may be scrambling to get something done because it's an abbreviated procurement process, and to get on as a subcontractor. So we always talk about relationships, but it's not only relationships with agencies, it's also relationships with prime contractors who can help you get into agencies, where you can then transition to a prime.
Can't add any more than that. And I love the watching for the awards, and we can talk about that in a few minutes a little bit more, because I'd like to expand on that. And like I said, and you mentioned this, shorter time frames. We're seeing between GSA eBuy and SAM.gov, when we get into the last week in September, 3 postings per minute, because they got to spend the money. And those turnarounds are going to shrink to 24 hours. And Greg, you said you saw one when? How long? How fast a turn?
It was issued on a Sunday and it was due Monday morning.
Yeah. It was eBuy probably.
It was not, but we won that contract though.
Because maybe he knew it was coming. Just maybe he knew it was coming. Limited competition. If you want to check out, if you have a GSA contract, you can sign up for quickfuse.com. Tip 6. Believe it or not, they still use fax machines. At least that's what I heard.
Oh yeah.
You can
And typewriters.
and typewriters that are still in boxes.
Yep.
Why
If you're
are there
selling
typewriters? Hold on. Why are there typewriters in boxes that you know for a fact? This is a direct first-hand story. This is not BS. Go ahead.
The last 2 weeks, this is 2021. The last 2 weeks before the end of the fiscal year, the Bureau of Prisons decided to buy 500 typewriters just because they had to meet the budget, and so they are still there to this day, according to my friends who are still there. Still in boxes in one of our little warehouse things. They're supposed to be for the inmates to be able to get their work done or whatever, but they 500 typewriters. So if you're selling typewriters, contact the Bureau of Prisons.
That's right. And as Greg said, you have to have a weekend watch. Assign your team players. Make sure they're paying attention, because if you don't see it, you're not going to get it. I was working with somebody years ago, and it came in on a Sunday, do 11 a.m. on a Monday, and they missed it. It's $225,000 too, just saying. And they were the ones who were wired for it. So it, when in doubt, establish redundancy across your channels. You know, if I'm not available, somebody else is getting that phone call. If I'm not paying attention to my emails, somebody else is paying attention. I will get to your questions in just a second, by the way. There's a couple of really, really good ones in there. And somebody's got their hand
There's
raised.
there's one for Irene in the Q&A if you want to respond to that in text.
Okay, fantastic.
I can't see those, or they?
Click on the Q&A at the bottom.
So, and double check your responses. How important is to provide complete information, Greg Clark?
Be blunt, probably less important right now.
Okay.
Everything's getting abbreviated, including the responses. I mean, you may not have time, and your options are either not to respond or put together what you can and get it over there. And if something is, if you're in the ballpark, they'll give you an opportunity to clean it up. I mean, that's not good advice overall, but everything's abbreviated. So if it's a quick turnaround time and you find out and it's due it this afternoon, put something together that addresses what they're looking for, and hopefully they'll give you an opportunity to clean it up in CRs and DRs.
I love that. I love that. People that disagree with me on my own program. It's fantastic. So, and finally, tip number 10. When things are happening, we have seen this. I don't know I don't know if you actually did this, Brian Hebel, but we have seen stuff come in after midnight, and I've heard about it. I've never seen one coming in. It's 11:59. Crying out loud, who put this slide deck together? It's 11:59 Hawaiian time, which is 5:59 Eastern Standard Time. So, anybody got any last minute things they want to throw in about this? I do want to let's see. Paula said I missed the beginning of the Zoom. How did I get a replay? Because I had someone connect with me from Dubai to do business. Paula, you're blowing us off to do business? Cannot believe such a thing could possibly happen. There's the handouts in case you missed those, Paula. You get a copy. We'll get you a copy of the recording. So, Greg,
Okay, so I gotta ask. I'm very curious. And Brian, if you can't answer this, then yeah, don't feel obligated to. But and the reason I asked this is because, and this is all public information, there was a warden at the Bureau of Prisons who ended up in some serious trouble with the FBI. He got walked out and whatnot, and it was due to contracting fraud. So he was choosing, I guess, certain contractors and then getting kickbacks from them. And one of them was actually an inmate's company. So that's how he got caught on that. And again, this is all public information, but I'm just curious, how much pull do the agency directors actually have with the contracting officer? Like, how does something like this happen?
Boy, that's a good question, because depending on the dollar size, would have to go through certain reviews. So, I mean, he could have been a lower level contracting officer, but, you know, it's just somebody who's really stupid, because I mean, you know, the money is going to be in the system. Somebody's going to see something, and we never had problems like that at my agency. But I had people come at me with holsters one time, or with guns on their pockets, wanting to talk to me, and a server disappeared from the receiving dock. So that was good, but they scared me initially, and then I had the Defense Investigative Service interview me one time thinking I was taking a bribe from a contractor, me and another contracting officer. And of course that went away. It was way back when, because the contractor had some problems. But anyhow, you know, you do, you know, you just don't do anything stupid. You know, as I always tell people in my training, when we train the government people on CPARs and they're new, I tell them, if you made a mistake, if you did anything wrong, just tell people everything's fixable. But if you're going to do something stupid like that, you deserve to go to jail, and you deserve what you're going to get. So that's an anomaly from that standpoint.
It happened because
Yeah,
somebody.
everybody sees what everybody else is buying. Now, with people working at home now, it could be a little bit different, that you don't know the people that you're working with as much as you did when we were in person. But when you're in person, you're sitting right next to the person. You could, you know, but maybe in that case, they might have been in different, you know, the person overseeing the contracts could have been in a different location than the person, you know, writing those contracts. So, but that's very rare. That stuff rarely happens.
Got it. Love it.
Thank you.
Rafael Marrero, what do you got for us getting us out of here? We're going to get everybody out of here in 2 minutes.
You know, it's important. We have a few days. We have what, 18 days, Dave, left, right? So right now you have to go for the Hail Marys, and you also have to see if you can land some last minute deals. You have to take a look at your capability statement, your signature block, and what you say in that email.
Oh, I like that.
If you need a hand, please give us a call and take us up on this, because we offer a free consultation. And I can't stress this enough. Just like a resume can help get you the interview, the right capability statement can also open that door and begin that dialogue, right? And help you. So don't misrepresent on it. Don't oversell yourself, because it can just as easily get you kicked off the top 5 list, if so to speak. So give us a call. We'll really help you put together a very powerful, memorable, and high quality capability statement. And signature block with all the essential information, and the email that says just the right message with the right amount of text in there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And if you don't have a professional capability statement, that's where you really need to be.
Yeah, add on to that, Dave.
What's that?
Let me add on to that. Something we talked about yesterday in the roundtable is, you know, what to do now. You know, you're waiting for a solicitation, you're monitoring SAM.gov, you're doing those things. But also, if you have existing customers or past customers, contact them. They know your experience and capabilities, and say, look, I know things same for the next 2 weeks. If there's anything that you need to get accomplished, you know our experience and capabilities. Is there anything we can do to help? We're ready.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
You absolutely don't go back over a whole past year. Go ahead, Brian. What you got?
Greg, I'll just say out of sight, out of mind. So I like what you said, because if you get a reminder, you know, it's good thing. It's just like an 8A. If the 8A came across my desk and I had something, I'd send them over to program. But if they weren't there, you know, out of sight, out of mind. So
it's like, but Brian, I had the most important meeting of my life with you back in March. You should remember me.
Nope.
Seriously. I mean, that's when we think, you know, when I had big meetings, they're really impactful for me, but I had 45 minutes with the head of GSA, FAS, the head. I had 45 minutes. I got together with him for lunch to thank him. This was 15 years ago. I got together with him for lunch this year. So I don't remember that meeting.
Yeah.
It's the most impactful meeting I ever had.
You're just another schmuck 6 months later. We don't.
That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
so
Why do people keep calling you that?
What's that?
Why do people keep calling you that?
A schmuck. Hey, us schmucks have to be remembered. We have the schmuck reminder thing. All right, guys, we want to get you guys out of here. And somebody's asking for contact information from Christy, saying to host and panelists, contact information. Let me go do that. So for everyone, my contact information is Dave Lowe. Actually, I'm gonna give you that in just a minute. But I'll do DLowe at isifederal.com, so at least it's in there so everybody can do that. And I do want to let everybody know we got a bunch of exciting things happening on GovBrief. Please visit there, govbrief.us. If you want to reach Govies like Brian before he exited and became one of us, then we want to help you reach those. We're calling for presenters and for clients that want to reach those folks. And otherwise, there's my information. We will see you October 10th at 11 a.m. if you want to join us again. And otherwise, we really appreciate it. Did I have any last minute polls? I don't think I had anything in particular that was really, I will do this. I'm going to launch this one just in case you guys want to say, hey, you want some help. We help with marketing and intelligence and for monitoring and things like that. Marketing materials, just pick whatever you would like. There's a couple there's one older one there that Julie's now with FEMA. I don't know if you guys know that. Did you guys know Julie's with FEMA? Julie Branson?
Yes.
With FEMA.
Oh,
That's really cool.
Yep.
And the handouts we got, you can take those. Well, you're welcome, Stacy Poe. And I think, did we get everybody else? And Christy, Christy, you had everybody put their stuff in there. My stuff's in there. Anything else before we jump out of here? Really appreciate you guys. Thanks for the insight. Anything? And Rafa, I want you to be involved in the next FEMA briefing we do. Is that cool?
Yes, of course. Of course.
We just did one. We just did one a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Happened to be really timely because of the hurricane that was coming through. Didn't plan it that way. Plan it ahead.
Right.
But yeah, and Greg, you and I are going to do RFPs, provided you're not sucked in an Oasis hole, right? So, all right, guys, we're gonna keep. I'm gonna keep this open for just a minute. Any parting things that you got, Brian Hevel? I really appreciate you being here, man. Did Brian leave us?
he gone.
He vacated. He just blew this popsicle stand. Peter Timbus, we didn't really get a chance to highlight you that much. You've been sitting there
Well,
pretty
that's all
quiet.
right. I just wanted to make a statement that don't let access to capital prevent anybody from going after any of these opportunities,
Really?
because we lend to the opportunity and we can get you funded in 2 to 3 business days. So don't let access to capital prevent you from moving on any opportunities.
Couldn't agree more.
And he can help you get 8A certified if you don't have enough capital to join 8A.
Yes. Thank you, Irene.
Of course.
And that's one thing I would like to say is that you'll find that all these things weave together. That in order to be able to be ready to do business in certain areas, you're going to need a socioeconomic certification. You're going to need capital. You're going to need to look like you belong, and you're going to need to be able to market to people. And then after you market to people, you're going to have to respond to RFPs. Welcome to the party, pal.
Absolutely.
Right, Craig?
Yeah, I think what we've done here is amazing. Having like a true like suite of experts, like a full coalition where we pass clients onto one another and they become fully ready to kick it into gear in the federal marketplace.
And win.
Yeah, we got to reconvene in Miami soon.
Yes.
Yes, we do. When are we doing that? How about I'm down there in October.
Well, let's do that. Pork chops are on me.
Pork chops.
Yeah.
Cuban pork chops.
Oh, ask my good man here from Palm Beach County. Tell him.
Maron.
I don't know what that means.
Me neither.
I'm there for the mojitos. I'll come in.
We got
Oh,
those.
okay. All right, there you go. Well, I'm gonna let everybody get out of here. Thank you very much for everybody that joined us, the attendees as well as the panelists. Always love you guys. Love working with you. And anything I can do to help anybody, as always, please feel free to reach out. And then, other than that, see you next month, right?
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
See you guys.